This is Arts Alive. I'm Lynda Philippi. My guest is Jim Morehead. And Jim, we have a special fondness for Jim because he is formerly a member of our cast and crew here on Arts Alive, but he's also a really talented painter and constantly surprising and evolving painter as well. I mean, what you're doing now is just so much different than the last of your work that I've seen.
Professional advice to artists is not to have such a wealth of work that is so varied that it looks like 12 different people did it. So I've tried to focus one at a time in my interests, and now I'm focusing elsewhere.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, I think the last time that I saw some of your work, which may have actually been when you were on the show, lots of real color-saturated landscapes, and I thought, wow, this is great. And now you're doing portraits.
Portraits.
Which is
mostly of children. I love doing children the best. They're colorful, they're all pretty, and they're fun to do.
So how did your work sort of evolve in that direction?
I used to do portraits, and most recently in the portrait arena, I've done pastels of Native Americans from popular photography taken in the 19th century.
Oh, okay.
And I loved doing it, and that's why I do any of these areas that I get involved in, is because it's got to make me happy, because artists cannot count on selling. And so my first venture into art, beyond an occasional means once every other year a piece, was when I retired. I started, in a sense, studying the Dutch masters by repainting their work in acrylic, though, which they didn't use, and on bare panels of wood. And I would do layer on layer and layer until they looked, most of them were miniature, they looked like a reproduction of the large canvases. And it made me happy, and I wouldn't always do exactly like the original artist did, so I was playing with it and studying with them. And then after the old masters, I got into waterfall hiking with my wife, and I had this naive idea that I could paint all the waterfalls in the Pacific Northwest. I didn't know how many there were, but it was fun.
In a drought year, I hope.
It was fun.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, the best time to photograph them, and I work from my photographs, is in the spring. If you can avoid the snow and the ice, you're better off, but when it's melting, it really engorges the waterfalls, the rivers and streams.
The volume.
And even supplies water to what they call freshettes along the roadside, and they're often prettier than the year-round waterfalls. They just happen when there's excess water flowing, and I could go on for an hour about waterfalls. I love them.
And so but at some point you said, I think I've done waterfalls.
Right. And when I set aside the old masters, I truly believed I'd be doing them always. And yet I've set them aside, and I haven't. Well, I do want to do one or two that I can think of offhand, but just to gain the experience, John Singer Sargent did a huge painting of, I think there were oyster gatherers on the beach, and gorgeous colors. He was, in that painting at least, he was highly influenced by the Impressionists. But I went on to the waterfalls, and as I was setting them aside a few months ago, I thought, well, I'll always do waterfalls too, perhaps. So now I'm doing children's portraits and adult portraits from old black and white photographs, and so far I've done mostly my own family, cousins and second cousins and little nephews and nieces, and it's been a lot of fun. Black and white photographs
Just
or
kind of
color.
teaching yourself how to do it, really.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
refining your technique. I know that you brought some images, so should we go ahead and take a peek?
Sure.
Okay. Maybe you can just talk us through.
These are two nephews
Okay.
that I haven't seen since they were about 2 and 5 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And now they're actually teenagers.
Oh, okay.
So I took a photograph that my wife's sister is their grandmother, and I took her out of the picture. She was right in between them, and I put them together as brothers.
Oh, okay.
This is Willie. He's one of 3 siblings of another sister of my wife. He's in his mid-30s now, and I took him and his 2 sisters from a group photo of all the cousins and singled them out into separate individual portraits. And I got very creative with one of his sisters in that she had just cut her own hair
Oh, gosh.
before the photograph was
Nice.
taken, like a day or 3 before. And as I was doing the portrait, I thought, this hair doesn't look right.
No.
You know, I'm not real sensitive to some of those things. And I asked my wife about it,
goodness.
and she said, well, she cut her own hair. And so I changed it.
You restored it.
After her bangs were finished, I brought them down further, and it was a lot of fun. And I changed her dress also. Her sister, Charlene, had a very feminine dress with flowers on it, and Anita, who cut her own hair, had a very utilitarian play dress, and so I made it more feminine.
Oh, how fun. Okay.
It is fun.
Artistic
I love it.
license. Yeah.
There's Charlene with the flowery dress, very feminine. And there's Artie, one of their cousins from, he's now in his mid to late 30s.
Oh, my goodness.
And the 2 boys we saw at first were his sons.
Oh,
Here is Jordan, Charlene's son, and I painted his sister and Jordan from a photograph of them together, and they are both the children of Charlene. So they all look like little kids, very pretty and fresh, and
Innocent,
they're all grown up.
oh, my goodness. Have they seen this work?
Not yet.
No, okay.
It's going to be a special surprise gift.
I would say so.
I did prints of them all first, thinking I would send them prints, and then my wife said, why not send the originals?
Yeah.
So they're going to get a surprise.
That's going to be really nice.
It will. It's a thrill to be able to paint these, and now they'll be on the wall forever, little children, pretty
Sure.
and happy.
So now, do you do this? Do you take commissions?
I do,
Okay.
and I will. I haven't gone searching for commissions actively, but I have had a couple of shows in our area at various coffee shops, and we'll continue.
So you're in Newburgh now. Your show.
Right, right.
Okay.
I have a show wrapping up in Chapter's book and coffee shop, and I had a show a couple of months ago in Union Block coffee shop.
In McMinnville.
Right.
Do you have plans for another show at any point?
Right. What's the name of the coffee shop? They'll hate me for not remembering.
Okay.
That's all the way down on Baker Street toward Adams and Baker.
Cornerstone.
Cornerstone. I love that coffee shop.
Mm-hmm.
They have huge brick
They
walls
do.
for art.
It's perfect. It's a great gallery.
And they're scheduled for February of this
Okay.
coming year.
That's good. Then people can to go and see your work, because I know you don't have a website.
Right, right.
So you're pretty much just, well, not reclusive.
Just word of mouth.
Word of
and
mouth, yeah.
like
By appointment only.
Right, right. I've seen galleries come and go, and I don't know where portraits are most suitable to hang.
You know, that's the thing with portraits. I think you really, it is so personal. You know, you see the portraits that you've done, and the kids are just darling. But you know, if they're not your kids, they're not your kids. Let's face it. So I think that's something that's kind of like intimate and in the home, and you know, people
Right.
cherish them, and they make fabulous gifts.
Some of the Impressionists, for example, painted people, including dancers or children at play, and that would be wonderful to have of your own children.
Absolutely,
and
yeah.
even of someone else's children if it's beautifully done. But I like doing portraits because you're right up close in the person's face, and it's so much more lively and alive to see the twinkle in the eye, and not just one twinkle, but there are various reflections that I'm exploring just in the eyes, and different falls of light on the cheek. It's just fun for me.
Well, I mean, just from the technical aspect, just getting it right. You know, just getting it just right so that the light hits it and it really does what you want it to do.
Right. Two of the children that I painted that we saw images of, I did first in that same size canvas, but I put them together, and so the heads were much smaller, and I wasn't happy with the likeness of the girl. So I did that. That's what decided me to do them so that I could see all the little details and portray them. And that was very satisfying.
So is that the way that you typically work? I mean, the way that you teach yourself how to do something is you just do it until you get it right?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yes. I recently, I'd say about 3 or 4 months ago, when I was thinking about doing portraits again, that I broke down and bought a couple of videos from portrait artists in art magazines.
Okay.
And it was interesting, very, very informative, because they actually give their palette, what colors they use, and demonstrate. And I like watching them, and I absorb some specifics, but I don't study them in detail because it gets so tedious. They analyze it to death. And I'm more into having fun. Just get the basics and play with it.
Well, Jim, this is amazing. I mean, I love seeing what you're doing now, and I can't wait to catch up with you again and find out what your next best idea is going to be. But thank you so much for coming today.
Thanks for having me. I enjoyed it.
Me too.